Hi and welcome to this free cmiVFX video tutorial. My name is Sebastian König, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can install VRay and the VRay exporter. And I'm not talking about an exporter for Maya or Max. No, we are talking about an exporter for Blender that lets you render your blend files with the VRay for Maya Standalone. And the coolest thing about the standalone version is that it won't cost you the $800 that you would have to pay if you wanted to use the Maya plugin for VRay, but not even half of that, about 350 euros. So how's that possible? Well, there is one generous developer who has been scripting a VRay exporter for Blender since several years now. First for the old version of Blender 2.49 and of course now for 2.5, the current and highly improved version. And thanks to the new Python API, the interface of the exporter is now tightly integrated into the Blender interface, so you won't even notice that you are working with an exporter script. In this video, I will just show you how to install and get the exporter script or a custom build to export, and also how to install VRay. Well, installing VRay is of course not so very interesting, but especially on OS X, it's not so easy as you might think it is. But before I do that, I want to give you a little overview of what you can do with VRay and how you would use it with Blender. So first of all, I just switched the render engine from Blender Render to VRay, and you can see that the properties window has changed to some completely new settings, and you see here all the VRay settings for color mapping, for global illumination, for the global render settings, light cache, irradiance map, and all that stuff. And even if you go to the materials, you can see that now there are totally different parameters that you can use for VRay. Well, and the render process is pretty straightforward. First of all, you export the meshes, and when you want to have a global illumination, you enable that, and then you just press on render or just hit F12. And if you do that, that will launch the VRay frame buffer and you will see the render result. And well, modeling and everything is just like you know that from Blender, so there's not much of a difference. You can change colors, you can give certain different materials, you can change the colors on lights, you can duplicate the lights, just like as you would do with Blender. You have your camera, and you press, well, when you now press render, you would just see the same that we had before. So first let's export the meshes and then render the image. You can see the preview, and yeah, you can leave it running and it will render. Let me open up a different scene, maybe this one. This is a demo file that I've got from the VRay to Blender developer site. I've also adjusted some of the settings so that they fit better to the current version. When I now press render, it will launch the VRay frame buffer, and you will see an immediate result of the light cache, or let's say the diffuse light. And after that you can follow how the renderer just goes through several steps, and when it's finished it will render the final image. And it's looking great, and it's going really, really fast. Partly because I've optimized the settings a little bit, so there are a few drawbacks in quality, but of course we can later adjust that to the final quality. But for preview renders, this is really, really great, and it's totally fast. So if you look at the render time, this is not even 1 minute, and it's looking great. So that's how you can use VRay and Blender. And in the following tutorial, I'm going to show you where you can download the exporter, where you can download VRay, and also how to install VRay. Because installing VRay is not that easy as you might think. Especially on OS X, there's a little bit more work to do. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the next minutes. But if you want to know how to set up the global illumination, the light cache, the irradiance map, how to set up texture baking, animation, and all that stuff, that will be covered in another tutorial where I'm going to show you that. So first, of course, we need the VRay executable. And I'm going to start with a demo version, because I could imagine that some of you might first want to try that before pulling the trigger and actually buy VRay. And I want to start with Windows. So let's just go to the website chaosgroup.com and then log in. Well, if you don't have an account, of course, you have to register. But once you have that, you just log in. And then you go to Downloads, VRay for Maya. And then if you scroll down, you will find the VRay for Maya demo builds. And what you won't find is the VRay Standalone, because that's basically, this is the same. If you want to have VRay for Maya or VRay for Maya Standalone, this is just one download. The difference is in the license, and for the license you need to have a dongle with a license server, and this license server then well, would allow you to use VRay for Maya as a plugin if you have Maya. But in our case, we just download and use the demo and just use the standalone. So, well, now let's get any of these. For instance, VRay for Maya 2009 64-bit. Save that. And yeah, of course, I already did that. So this is the folder, and we just double click here and then launch that. And on Windows, it's just easy. You just press next and I agree. And well, here you have you can choose what you want to, if you want to have the full version or just the standalone. And of course, we only want that. So next. And don't worry about these folders. VRay will just create them for you, and everything's fine like it is. So just press next and next and next and next until you finish the installation, and then you can run VRay. So disable that, finish, and we are done. On OS X, however, things are a little bit more complicated. So let's have a look at that. So first of all, we just go to Downloads, VRay for Maya, just like for Windows. It's really the same thing. But you can choose between 64 and 32-bit. Well, you can do that on Windows too, but here it really matters because there's a weird bug on the 64-bit builds on VRay where you cannot see the VRay frame buffer. Apparently this hasn't been ported yet to Coco, the 64-bit Mac UI. So it will render, but you will not see the render window, which of course is a big problem because we really need to have the previews. So for now, just download the 32-bit builds, so either Maya 2010 Leopard or Maya 2009 Darwin or 2008 Darwin, doesn't matter. But if you do need the 64-bit for rendering, because you need to be able to address more RAM, then you can still download the Snow Leopard build, this one or that one, 64-bit, and just in addition to the 32-bit builds. So you could, in theory, you could prepare your files rendering with the 32-bit version where we have the preview. But then when it comes to render the final animation, where you need more RAM because you render at higher resolution with more objects or stuff like that, then you can just switch the path to the 64-bit executable. But for now, let's just use that one. And of course, I've already downloaded that. And what you see here is not a mistake. This is actually the OS X version. However, it is not a DMG or an app or any of the files that you know from OS X. This has the regular Windows file extension. And when you double click that, you will apparently get an error. So this is where we have to use the terminal and where things get a little bit more complicated. But then again, it's not that bad. So we have to launch the terminal for that. If you have never worked with the terminal before, basically you would just go to the Finder and then browse to the Utilities directory here, and in there we have the terminal. And we launch that, and now we have to navigate to the folder with our VRay executable to launch it. So you can do that by typing CD for change directory, and then you just type DE for desktop, and then with tab you have autocomplete desktop, and then you continue typing VRay and then just autocomplete underscore D for demo, tab to autocomplete, and then press enter, and there you are. Or you can make that a little bit easier. So if I go back to my home directory, so you can type CD and then you open up the folder, in this case the download folder with that VRay demo. You can just drag that into the terminal, press enter, not here of course, but there, and that is the same thing. So now let's see what's inside of that. You can do that by pressing LS, and there we go. That's the install VRay for Maya PDF and the executable. And now to actually install VRay, we type sudo to get write permissions, and then /VRay autocomplete, and then just enter, and then just continue and pressing enter. Enter, enter, enter. This is all of the license agreements. And you can see that's basically the same as in Windows. It's just that the interface is, oh well, actually there is no interface, it's just the terminal. But the process itself is the same. So confirm that. And then here we can choose between full or standalone. And of course we are just using the standalone. So press 2, enter, enter to continue. And now it's asking you for the Maya root folder. And it's not a problem that we don't have Maya. We can just press enter to confirm that. It will create these folders. And you can see that it will even create this maya.app, which of course will be empty, but in the end it's just a folder. So it will just put the VRay binary inside the Maya app. So just, I mean, you could probably also change the path, but it's just easier to confirm all that. So now it's creating these files. Installation was successful. Press edit to continue. No, we don't want to register that as a slave, so press no. We also don't want to see the changelog, so no, enter to continue, and then we're done. We have installed the VRay demo. And that process should be more or less the same on Linux. So, but next of course is to get the actual exporter. So we'll go to our web browser and go to bdancer.github.com. And that is the site of the developer of the script, Andrey Izrantsev. And from here we can download the exporter script. But as you can see here, it is highly recommended to use a custom build. And that custom build has a few features more than if you would just use the exporter script. Because currently there are some things that we cannot address with a Python API, I guess, in Blender. So he wrote a patch, or he created a patched version that includes the exporter and a patch that gives access to certain features that we need for VRay. And these features are VRay procedural textures, and one of them is also the VRay sky. And of course, if you want to use the VRay sun, then you also want to use the VRay sky, obviously. So you could download this custom build from here, go to download, and it will also include multi-threaded mesh and hair export, so it will be faster. In the future, I heard that there will be some changes to Blender that will make it possible for the exporter to use the VRay procedural textures. So in the future, you might just be able to download the exporter, put that into the startup scripts folder, and then it will load from there. But for now, it's just easier to use a custom build. So we can just download from here, or if you want to support the project, then you can go here and click on support the project, and from here you can buy the VRay Blender bundle, and that will be essentially the same thing, but you can, well, sort of donate him 15 euros because he cannot use PayPal for some reason, but yeah, with that you will support him and this project. But for now, let's just go ahead and download the exporter from here, or actually the custom build. So go to download, and that will bring you to github.com, and from here you can download for Windows, OS X, or for Linux. If you're interested, you can also have a look here at the project page, and if you go to VB25 patch, you can download the patch and compile yourself. And if you want to know how to do that, you can go to the wiki, and there's a description what you have to do in order to create your own custom build. Because currently the custom builds that we can download are a little bit outdated. They are from April. I mean, they will work just fine, but if you want to have the latest version of Blender, then you might want to build yourself, or I'm sure that in the future there will be more recent builds from Blender and the exporter. But we'll just download those, and of course I've already done that, and work with them. So here we are back in Windows, and I've downloaded the VRay demo build. I've also downloaded and installed the VRay to Blender custom build, and I want to launch just that. So go here, VRay Blender, there it is. And there we go. So that's just Blender. And if you want to render, you would go here, Blender, and then switch the render engine to VRay. And even though it says VRay 2, it will also be compatible with VRay 1.5. It will just, not all the features that you will see here are compatible with 1.5, but the general things are the same. So now if you want to just test to render, you can just press F12 and you can see it's launching the VRay frame buffer, but it's doing nothing. And part of the problem is that we are currently using the VRay demo build, and the demo build is constrained or is limited to a resolution of 600 by 450. You can set this to 100%. So let's see if that works better now. And there you go, there's a cube. Great. Well, if we add a plane and render that, there, that's still just a cube. And the reason for that is that I had exported before a scene file with just this cube. So in order to render something, you first have to export the meshes. And you can do that here in the exporter options, or in render actually. You can export meshes, or you can also enable auto export and it will do everything automatically. And while we are here, of course, we want to have global illumination enabled, so we just make this checkbox here. And while we are here, we can also maybe change the lighting just a little bit. So maybe we go here and change the light, and you might notice that everything is pretty much like Blender, or at least it's very similar. You have the sun buttons and there's a color. You can Shift D to duplicate and just then change the color here. So everything's pretty similar than in Blender. Actually, if we would go back to Blender render, to the Blender internal render engine, you can see the color is still here and also there. So that's pretty compatible, or at least it's similar. But now let's render that and see what it does. You can see there it's you can see immediately a preview. It's doing funny stuff, and there you've got your finished image. So we can conclude on Windows everything works fine. But again, on OS X things are a little bit different. So if we go here and launch the OS X VRay Blender version, we can do the same thing. We just go to VRay 2.0, set this to 600 and 450, set this to 100%, add a plane, make it bigger, then enable auto export meshes, and then press F12. Nothing happens. So what's wrong? Maybe something here in the exporter. So let's have a look. Output, we don't need that. That is correct. We don't need these ones. We can collapse that. Nope, nothing there. So what's happening? Now the thing is, on Windows, detect VRay will work. So it will just automatically find the VRay binary. For some reasons, again, on OS X it doesn't work. And I think it's the same for Linux. So what we have to do is to create a symlink so that we can create a custom, let's say, system path that will tell the exporter where to find the VRay binary. So again, we have to do a little bit of terminal work. So let's bring this down and open up the terminal. And once you know how to do it, it's easy. But if you don't, then it's hard. So first thing, I want to navigate to my applications folder with my VRay binary. Alright, so here's the VRay folder with the VRay binary. And we need this file right here, the VRay, it's not the exe, it's just the VRay. And we have to create a system link, or a symlink, to the user binary folder. And I will show you how to do that. So you type cd for change directory, then spacebar, then /user autocomplete, and then bi autocomplete, and then enter. And when you now type ls just to see what it does, you will find a whole bunch of files. So that's quite a bit. And we have to create one of these files. So that would be basically the path where we have to go. And to do that, we type again sudo for, I guess, super user do, just to have the right permissions. So sudo and then ln for link -s, I guess that's for system link, then spacebar / and then now we have to tell it the folder to which it has to link. And the easiest way to do that is to just drag the file, I have to correct me, the file, not the folder, the file that we want to link to, we just drag it in here. So we grab that and then switch to the terminal and let go. Now it has pasted this path in here, and the next 4 letters are VRay. So what's happening is, with right permissions, it's creating a link, a system link to this path, the VRay binary, and the name will be VRay. So press enter, and then you have to type in your password, and now you're done. If you press ls to see what's inside of this folder, you will now find somewhere VRay. There we go. So when we now launch VRay, or a Blender actually, this should now, when we press F12, launch hopefully the VRay frame buffer. And there it is. It's working. So you can see here the demo watermark as well. So everything's fine. And we can now also go ahead and render a test file. For example, this Cornell box. And again, in the exporter, make sure that auto export meshes is enabled. Then we want to have it pretty, so we also enable where is it, global illumination, and then just press F12 or render image. And there you go, there's your image. And again, on OS X, it's a little bit tricky sometimes, because it takes a while until the VRay frame buffer gets responsive. So all these controls, and especially these controls up here, will not react immediately. So what I usually do is to alt right click on the icon in the dock, and then cancel, or what is it in English? I don't know. Kill or end immediately, whatever. All right, so that's how you use the demo. All right, and now for those of you who really want to purchase VRay, I'm going to walk you through that as well, because especially again on OS X, it can be a little bit tricky to get everything to run. On Windows, you have a proper UI for that, so I will not cover that. The process is more or less the same as in OS X, but you will have a better interface. And on OS X, there's again a lot of terminal work to do. Or maybe not a lot of, but a little bit. So first of all, you have to purchase VRay. And you cannot do that at chaosgroup.com. You will have to find a local reseller or a web shop. And I got mine from evermotion.org. where you can just search for VRay Maya Standalone, and that will bring you to these results. And then you just go here, VRay Standalone 2, and you can just purchase this single pack for 350 euros. The cool thing is that once you purchase one standalone license, you can use that with 10 render slaves. So when you render from one server, you can have 10 computers, 10 render slaves using for distributed rendering with one single license. So that's pretty cool. And on top of that, you also need to have the VRay dongle key. And the VRay dongle, let's also search for that. VRay dongle. So the VRay dongle, that is basically a USB stick with the license on that. And you need that. By the way, Evermotion is only for Europe. So if you're from the US, you probably need another reseller, but the process should be the same. So you need to have the dongle. They will send you that USB key, and on that USB key you have the license. And when you put that USB key inside of your computer, you will need to have a program that is able to read that USB key and to send the license on throughout your network. So when you have purchased VRay, for example here on Evermotion, then may take a few hours, but then you will find inside of your Chaos Group account, you will find when you go to the downloads for Maya, you will find now not only the demo builds but also the ADV builds. And these are, I don't know what ADV stands for, but these are the actual, the full version of VRay. So, and you can just download that. I already did that for Maya 2010 Leopard 32-bit, and then unpack that folder. And here you will find not only the VRay executable, you will also find the VRL service and a DMG, or on Windows is of course also an exe or an executable. This will read the license from your USB dongle. And to install these, of course, you also will need the terminal. So you would go one folder up and then just type cd for change directory, drag that inside of the terminal, press enter, press ls, there's all your contents, and then you again sudo / and then first the VRay executable, and just enter and press enter until it's finished. And I will cancel that. And you will also have to install the VRL service. So again, sudo /VRL, and also enter password and enter. But I will terminate that because I've already did that. So cancel that. And when you have finished installing these ones, you also have to install the WK runtime. And when you've done that, you can launch that program, and this will be, it will read the serial number or the license on the USB key. And now when you have installed everything, in theory, you should be able to use everything, right? Well, it could be that you first have to set the VRL service, or to tell the VRL service which IP address it has to use. So let's go again to the terminal, and then we have to navigate to the folder with your VRay binary. So that is in Applications, Autodesk, Maya 2010, Maya App, Contents, VRay, bin, and then press ls for list and to see where it is. And there we can see the set VRL service.exe. So let's launch that with write permissions. So sudo /set and then tab for autocomplete, press enter, password, and now you can see the options that you have with this thing. And what we want to do is to specify the server name. So up arrow to repeat the last command, and we will now set the options by typing -server equals, and then you have to find the IP address of your computer. In my case, that is 192.168.1.103. Of course, that's in your local network. Or, and that might be a little bit easier, you just type localhost. Settings updated. And now you can also check if everything's working by going to your web browser and then go to localhost 3034, and then you can press get status of server, and here you can see the license. So it seems everything's running, but before we can actually use VRay from Blender now, remember we had set the symlink to the VRay demo. So again, we have to, of course we can just uninstall the demo, but in any case we have to set the symlink new. So let's change directory to user bin, and because we still have the VRay link, we have to first delete that before we can set this new. So and we have to do that with write permissions again. So we type sudo spacebar and then rm for remove, spacebar -f for remove file, and then just type the name, and that is VRay. Press enter, password, and then this symlink is gone. Now we have to set it new again with sudo ln spacebar -s and then applications Autodesk Maya 2010 Maya app contents VRay bin VRay spacebar and then the name of the new link, and that is again VRay. Enter, and now we should be able to use the full version. And on Windows the process is exactly the same. It's just that you have to use the terminal. You have a GUI for that. You will find that in your applications folder or in the program thing on the start menu on the left, and there you can just do all these settings with a nice UI, and that will be a little bit easier. So let's launch Blender, and then again switch to VRay, create a little boring scene, adjust the color like so, and then export the meshes, global illumination, and now we should be able to render even at a higher resolution. So let's try 720p, F12, and there we go. It's rendering, everything works, that's great. Alright, I just cancel that. Now if you have more computers than one, you can also use distributed rendering. I will show you how to do that in the other tutorial. But if you just want to, let's say you have your desktop computer, and you have the dongle inside of that, and then you also have your laptop, and you want to use VRay from your laptop, then you don't have to switch the dongle. You can, on your laptop, you can also specify, after you have installed VRay, obviously, but then you can also specify the VRL service just by doing it like we did before. So you would navigate to, well, basically you would do that. So you would go to the application folder and then launch set VRL service, and then set the IP address not to localhost but to the IP address of your computer with the dongle. So the IP address in your local network. Yeah, and I think that concludes now this introduction tutorial on how to install and use VRay. In the other tutorial I will show you how to set the global illumination settings, how to create materials, how to use proxy objects, how to scatter these proxy objects with particle instances, and much more. So I hope this was helpful. It might have been a little bit boring, but as you can see, the installation of VRay is not so self-explanatory as you might hope. So well, I hope this helped. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.